Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, another session of Airfreight Pharma. And again, under the banner, essential transport for an essential industry, and how appropriate at this very moment in time. Now, we've got a great guest, and I feel I can say great because I know this guest personally and professionally, and we worked together for a long time within Lufthansa, and we were both based in Stockholm. So the person I'm talking about is Professor Dr. Yvonne Ziegler. And Yvonne, it's so lovely to see you again. Really, really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. You're always such a charming host.
Yeah, I bet you didn't say that when we were at Lufthansa together. But anyway, that's another story. Now the topic that we're covering is, can procedural compliance in pharmaceutical logistics by air be reached through industry collaboration? And before we get into that, Yvonne, I'm just going to go through very briefly your very impressive bio. Okay, so Professor of Business Administration with special focus on aviation management at Frankfurt University. Okay, an academic background in business studies and a PhD in personnel management. And from 1991 to 2006, worked for Lufthansa German Airlines in management positions in Germany and abroad. And since 2007 has been a professor of business admin, international aviation management at Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences. From 2010 to 2013, also the dean of the business and law faculty. And in 2017 became program director of the Pharma Supply Chain Risk Management Project, which is funded by the Loewe 3 Research Promotion Initiative of the Hessian State. I've got to say, Yvonne, that's really impressive.
Thank you so much. Actually, you missed one thing. I'm also at the sitting in the advisory board of Condor, the German second airline.
You're also on the advisory board there as well, yeah? Well done, you. That is it's absolutely brilliant. Honestly, and I'm not just saying that. That is, my God, that's such a list to be very, very proud of. So, my God, I feel as if I'm at the opposite end of Darwin's scale now to you.
Oh my goodness. How can we get out of this now again?
Hey? Holy mother of Moses. Right, Salem. And I know you've recorded that one. That will pop up again later on. So appreciate that. Now, Yvonne, okay, you've got a presentation. You're always well prepared, and I know it's a really interesting presentation, and it's something that will allow people to see the workings of Mytigate. And also how the academic research and need came together with putting it into reality, because sometimes they don't always go hand in glove. And it's very easy to have an idea, but those that put it into practice need an additional set of applause. And you're also the CEO of Mytigate. So again, my God, I'm stooping lower and lower. So please, if you wouldn't mind, if you could bring up the presentation, and what we'll do is we'll go through the presentation and then we'll have a further chat at the end of the presentation, if that's okay. So lovely, Yvonne. That's the first slide there. And now obviously everybody will be able to see Mytigate, which is again, a very, very nice, attractive name. And I'm sure you'll enlighten us now as to what it is, what it does, and why it's so important moving forward, especially from the platform perspective of the pharma companies. So over to you, and if you don't mind, as we get into each slide, I might ask you a question or two, or just to ask for your enlightenment.
Of course, please feel free to ask whenever you have a question. So basically, I have organized the presentation, of course, from a point of view airline or handling agent. Yeah, who probably are going to watch this event. Yep. And I think most of handling agents and airlines, of course, are well aware of the fact that there are several regulations regarding pharma transport in place. One of the first ones are the European Union's Good Distribution Practice, the EU GDP, that came into law in 2013. And here, of course, several aspects are documented. For example, that there should be a quality system, a quality assurance system with a supply chain partner transporting pharma companies, that also the planning of transport should be risk-based, and also that the quality of the pharmaceutical product remains in a responsibility of the pharmaceutical manufacturer.
Yeah, no, exactly, that's right. And obviously you say it quite clearly here that, regulatory requirements have tightened. what sort, as they've tightened, which is the right thing to do, and especially now in hindsight as to what's happened with the pandemic, but what challenges do you think have caused the most problems for parties within the supply chain?
From a pharmaceutical company point of view, the biggest challenge is really that they don't have the full transparency. Of course, they have a contract with their forwarder, and most of the time, of course, they also know the airline involved, but they don't know which handling agents are handling their products, and also often they are not aware of the trucking company. Maybe they still know the trucking company on the origin side, but definitely often not on the destination side.
Yeah.
And sometimes there might also be two forwarders involved, which makes, let's say, the whole transparency even more complex.
Yeah, and can I ask you again, Yvonne? I mean, at this early stage, so that as we go through the slides, we'll be able to bear this in mind. I think it's great now that pharmaceutical companies are taking more notice, and I always remember even back in the old Lufthansa days, whenever we used to get a survey or a tender document or a questionnaire directly from any of the pharma people, it always made us as a company go into overdrive, because there was more detail in there than anything we ever normally did on one of our own internal self-assessments or audits. And it was a great learning experience, and it made people think, well, blimey, why are we only doing this now? Because we're getting such pressure from a pharma organisation. So with that in mind and the effect that it had, do you think now, as a result of creation here of Mytigate, that the core pharma organisations are now taking a much more solid interest in all upstream direction, upstream controls, and upstream education and awareness?
Yeah, they definitely have to, because there's, of course, the EU GDP, but there are, of course, also other regulations worldwide that require them to really monitor the entire supply chain for transportation. And of course, you also know, I think that's, of course, a bit different topic, but there's also a requirement regarding, of course, production and manufacturing to assure the supply chain. But there's, of course, especially for pharma products, also a big requirement that, of course, the transportation are up to the regulations. And that basically all parties involved are aware of the regulations, are aware of the standards, and are trained, so able to handle pharma products in a proper way.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I've got to say, from my most recent responsibilities in Saudi Arabia, I mean, SAL and Saudi Cargo, they moved incredibly fast over the last few years, and now they've got great facilities and everything, and they're taking it very seriously, as are everybody else who's taken on board the GDP or the various national GDP programs. Can I ask you where it says about shall we say guidelines, so what, upcoming, okay, so how and when are the upcoming programs coming into other parts of the globe?
So I think most countries have already a EU GDP, at least all those countries who are, of course, producing, exporting, transporting pharma products. So, for example, Saudi Arabia has also an own good distribution practice. Of course, let's say these regulations, they are relatively similar in 90% of the cases, but in 10% there are some differences, of course. And in our project, in our company now, Mytigate, we of course try to cover all the regulations and make sure that whenever a questionnaire is, for example, filled out, that we cover all the different aspects. So maybe not all aspects are similar relevant. For example, one thing is about the information about temperature documentation in warehouses, but also humidity. Of course, temperature here in Europe is, of course, very important that this is properly documented. Humidity is probably even more important, especially in countries with, like Singapore, for example, with a high humidity. So there might be a difference in relevance, but we are in our questionnaire covering all these questions, making sure that basically, as a pharma company, you know exactly what the company is able to deliver.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yeah, no, that's really important. All right, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Then I go on.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and of course,
this is an interesting one.
Yeah, everybody who has been working in the industry knows that there are multiple possibilities to do things wrong. And of course, especially pharma products, which are important for human beings, they should be really handled with a lot of care. So this is, from our point of view, the most important or critical incidents that can happen to pharma products. One big is, of course, temperature deviation when we think about all the vaccines that are transported at the moment, but there can also be other things happening like counterfeit, maybe in Asia, for example. This was a topic, at least in the past. Theft or delay or loss of products, accidents can happen. There can be problems with the documentation or vibration or causing any glass impulse to break, for example. So there are multiple possibilities to do things wrong. And our tool is basically trying to assess all the risk regarding these incidents.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Can I ask you on, oh, sorry, would you mind going back to that one?
Oh.
On this one here, and obviously some of the things that really make people, stand up and listen or it catches their attention. Do you have facts, figures and form, for all of these particular issues? Because when people see how many times it happens, even if it's not in the entire industry, but it's in the representation of somebody like, Mytigate's partners or users, it makes people stand up and listen, especially if it's associated with either time, money or consequence. Do you have those sort of statistics that would be available for reports, just to let people know how things were either developing, improving, or maybe even coming to people's attention because there was more just culture reporting?
Right. I mean, the pharma companies, of course, are collecting statistics regarding these incidents. And overall, of course, they also have statistics on irregularities. And unfortunately, I think since 2019, since the Corona crisis started, of course, the number of irregularities have increased because the supply chains have, unfortunately, some hiccups. Of course, on the air cargo side, capacity has decreased, and so there is a high demand. But not a lot of, let's say, destinations may be served as before, or not the capacity available. And also on the sea side, there are similar hiccups sometimes in China. Some ports are closed, etc. And we have seen also an increase of the rates both on the air cargo and also on the sea freight side. On the sea freight, the price for a container from Shanghai, for example, to Frankfurt has gone up from 2,000 euro to 20,000 euro. So it's enormous.
Yeah.
So it depends really on the pharma companies, how they are tracking this information. Often it's not, let's say, all in one place. They have, for example, still Excel files where they account for delays, for example. And separately, of course, temperature deviation when they do the analysis of the data logger information. So Mytigate is also a great opportunity to bring all this information together in one place and allocate it to the different lanes. Yeah. Because at the moment, often they are not in one place and not necessarily allocated to lanes, but rather to shipments.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, okay, and but I would imagine that's going to be invaluable, all of that data, once it starts to be collected. So that's brilliant. Okay, all right, next one, and I know the next one is another eye opener.
Yeah, so this is about air cargo. Of course, I spoke about the sea transportation. From a pharma point of view, often the number of irregularities on sea or road is less than half of the irregularities on air cargo. And of course, the irregularity will depend a lot on the product as well. But as I said, at the moment, they have really gone up, I think, for a lot of pharma companies because of the challenges of the supply chain. And air cargo is particularly challenging, and especially when we talk about cold chain. Or temperature control, transportation. And even IATA has at some point admitted that there is really there had been already a high number of irregularities in air cargo, and that's why a lot of initiatives and probably also the IATA CIV initiative started.
And that costs a lot of money, but equally it saves a lot of money if it's done properly. But I mean, Yvonne, you look at the years we've been in this industry, and we both were lucky enough to work for a company like Lufthansa, and I've worked for some other great airlines. But to see this and to think how we haven't been able to bring all of those components together, even after all this time, it's a crying shame. When other shall we say, disruptors or influencers come into the industry and they take it over because they've got a clean white canvas and they can just go for it. I mean, we've got to get this right, haven't we? And now with APIs and being able to link in, there's no need for us to be this, to have these sorts of results. We've got to get to grips with this. Right.
I do 100% agree. It would be great.
And it's it's such a shame, really, isn't it? I just think people now need to be more direct and say, look, if you can't comply with these requirements, we can't use you, irrespective of the price.
That's true, but I think the awareness is still not there yet. Also, that it's going to be helpful also to share data, for example, also to the benefit of others and the whole industry, and also to participate, and also maybe try to have, let's say, a self-assessment and also analyze weaknesses and learn from this.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think sometimes, there comes a cut-off point where you either have to turn the lights out or you've got to use that magic word fear. And if people can't comply, then they shouldn't be allowed to enter into the race for services because it's so important.
It's true, but you might have some destination where you don't have a lot of options. But then you have to, at least it's helpful if you know where, let's say, weaknesses of partners are or weaknesses in infrastructure are. For example, at least pharma companies then can better prepare.
Yep.
And packaging or active cool container, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Different equipment, and then you come up with a purpose-built mitigation or a solution. So, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Okay, then I move on a bit. Yeah, so this was.
Please, lovely.
This was basically the background of our mission. Yeah, that was at the origin of Mytigate, that we were approached by pharma companies asking us to help us to build a software that would be helping them to achieve this compliance with the EU GDP here for Europe, and also help them to do a digital lane risk assessment. And so this was basically our starting point, and we started with two big German companies here, Bayer and Boehringer, who also seconded personnel to our project, and also Jeffco as a forwarder was here, who also wanted to enter the pharma industry even more. And the company's Integrity was our development partner, and they had been already developed a risk model for a risk management tool for clinical trials. And they were very familiar with the requirements of the pharmaceutical industry regarding software development. And that it has to be compliant to the CFR 21 Part 11, for example, which is an American standard for the development of software for the pharma industry.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's the one thing you can't but be impressed with the credibility of the people that are involved and the parties. So yeah, brilliant.
That was then our advisory board, because we also wanted to make sure that we are not only representing two big pharma companies, but we also had Sanofi, Merck, Roche, and Abiopharm on board, and of course more forwarders and transport companies, and also big organizations like IATA and the Association of Pharma Companies here in Germany, for example.
Yeah, again, yep, some good names there. Yeah, this is an interesting one as far as the process, and something I just want to ask you about this. And obviously, I know you'll explain the whole process in a minute. But the thing that leapt out at me was the fact that, and even now, for those that are familiar with audits and IOSA with airlines, etc., even the ISAPs, because of the remoteness and because of lockdown, etc., there's had to be a reduction of on-site activity, and so it focuses then on the critical elements. And what you're doing here is you're combining lots of information and lots of data to come up with that end result, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So now I'm going to have a second part to that question once you've explained the
Okay.
process.
And I start. So basically our starting point is really here the legal requirements.
Yeah.
But of course also the product or the particular business regulation of the company. And we have created from this, especially from the legal requirements, standard questionnaire for the different roles that we have identified in the supply chain.
Yeah.
So different partners of course get different questions, but they are all supposed to cross-check the EU GDP or the GDP compliance.
Yep.
So once partners have filled out the questionnaire, there is a risk model behind it, and the risk model is then coming up with a risk score. And we also have a traffic light system behind, so it's easily you can easily recognize if there is a weakness of one partner. And this is a good thing, of course, for let's say all supply chain partners who want to cross-check their lines with the regulations. With Mytigate, they will be able to spot any weakness, and have the possibility also to improve here. So I think it's good if you are active in the pharma business, maybe to do this exercise and also see, okay, where do I have maybe some weaknesses still, and where can I improve further?
Yeah.
But what is also possible is to upload certificates and also display the different infrastructure capabilities of partners. So that's what I mentioned before. If you know, for example, that here at a certain airport, there is no possibility to have a temperature controlled room for the unloading, then of course, and you know it maybe takes 30 minutes until your products are stored safely again in the cold warehouse, then you know that of course you have to take some measures regarding the protection. And similar, we also ask of course questions regarding the transport time from the warehouse to the plane, in order to know how much time you have to really protect your shipment. If it's maybe worst case placed somewhere in the sun.
Yeah.
And so this is basically then the theoretical assessment, and from the different supply chain partners, of course, you can build up your lane, and you also get a score for the lane. You can then compare lanes and decide, let's say, for the lanes with a lower risk. And once you have then decided for a lane with respective partners, you can start sending out shipments and also again monitor the performance of these shipments and then feedback, of course, the real life performance data into the tool, through data log information, through information about delays, for example, or any other irregularity. So target, of course, here it's a learning system, and basically you are learning from the irregularities on the different lanes, because you can normally allocate them to one partner or set of partners, and then of course this has an impact then on the rating, on the risk rating that that Mytigate is calculating.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, and then obviously by having that transparency of risk, it helps people, especially the manufacturers, the shippers who are ultimately responsible for the type of packaging. So in some cases, they would upgrade the packaging to make sure that it mitigated that particular lane risk.
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly. So currently we are also adding information about weather risk. So once we know, of course, that there is a certain exposure to the weather, it's of course also important to know at what kind of months maybe you can expect what kind of weather conditions. And of course, often there's of course also a difference between the weather at the origin and at the destination. And so you have to take basically everything into account. And maybe even if you have a transit station, that's also something you have to consider regarding. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, especially the transit issues. Yeah, no, that's so important. All right, and then it's a logical one, and it also I know we're going to come to self-assessment shortly, but it also shares the the whole picture, so that people can really make a much better decision on what they want to do, and obviously at the end of the day, it's what they want to do.
Absolutely, yeah. The pharma companies, I think what they would love to have is really basically basically on a mouse click, they know exactly who is handling their product and also what kind of competencies these partners have. But at the moment, they don't have this transparency yet.
Yeah. And can I ask a question? And it might be a stupid question, Yvonne, so I'm sorry if it is. But I mean, if I was an insurance company, I'd be keen to see whether or not people use this lane risk. And if they did, if they had it to their fingertips and they chose not to do it, then that would also impact whether or not I'd pay out on the insurance.
Yes, absolutely. We have already spoken to some insurances, and they think it should be, there should be really a kind of Mytigate clause that pharma companies should be obliged, of course, to use this tool in order to assess the risk properly. Also before buying an insurance, or maybe giving even the information to the insurance so that they also know what they have to insure here, how big the risk is.
Yeah, no, definitely. All righty. If we go on to the next one.
Yeah, this is basically just an example of the questionnaire. This is, of course, differing according to the different roles. So there are up to 230 questions for some roles. This sounds quite a lot. However, normally the people who are answering the questionnaires, they are experts for the quality, they're experts for pharma, and it's then relatively easy. It takes them like 10 to 15 minutes to fill it out. And often we do this jointly, just to make sure that there are no misunderstandings. Yeah. And once this is filled out, there's, let's say here, a risk calculated. And in this case, this is Fraport, the cool pharma transport service here. And it's a really very good risk score, of course, pretty excellent. And they also have 2 certificates that you can also look at the tool and see also the expiry dates. And then additionally, there's more information about the infrastructure. For example, like what I said before, the transport times from the warehouse to the passenger aircraft. Yeah, so here in this case, it's a cool pharma transport product using cool dollies. So this should not be, let's say, of a big concern, because okay, your product will be cooled. However, if you are not using the cool pharma, but maybe the general pharma transportation, then you have to have maybe some preconditions if your product is temperature sensitive.
Okay, very good. And can I ask you as well, those that are regular, shall we say, choices within the tool or within the risk, are they obliged to feed in their KPI results or SPI results or any performance reports?
Not yet, because ideally we would like to have these KPI reports from the pharma companies.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
It's a good idea, and it's a question, how much information companies, of course, are willing to share. What you can also do if to add, I mean, of course, companies are free to add this KPI information. We have also the possibility to upload, for example, brochures about the services or information about awards that were collected. And you could also display here, of course, the KPI reports if you want to communicate and share this with your potential customers.
No, I think there's loads of opportunities, and it's such a good platform, and especially if it's linked to liability and insurance as well. So yeah.
So here, this is an example how the certificates look like, as I mentioned already before. And here, what I said already before, this is also the big advantage, of course, for airlines and handling agents, that they can really not that they can display and showcase the different products they have. Here, in the case of Fraport, this was the cool pharma transport, the general cargo transport, and the general pharma transport, and the fast cargo transport. And you can see, of course, those who are not pharma products, they have a yellow risk score. So they are not really, let's say, suitable for pharma transportation.
No, I agree with you. And that'd be something I'd have great fun talking to the colleagues and friends at Fraport over fast cargo transport.
Right. Yeah, but it's a product that is meant, of course, for very speedy delivery to the aircraft. Yeah, but it's not specific a pharma product.
Yeah. No, don't worry. I'm only pulling their legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just again to demonstrate how you can compare different lanes.
Yeah.
The first lane has a stopover, for example. Let's imagine maybe a transportation from Frankfurt somewhere to Africa, maybe with a stopover. And you automatically, of course, increase the number of parties involved, especially if you have maybe if you have a longer stopover and you have to put the shipment into the cool warehouse again, or the warehouse. And the advantage is, of course, that you can have a look basically at all the parties involved and have a look at their profiles.
Yeah, and this is a classic. So looking at that map on the left-hand side, there's so many origin options in Europe, and there's so many transit and final destination options, in the Middle East and also in Africa. So it really would show which choice is the one that should be selected, and it makes things a lot clearer and a lot more specific.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when you look at the lane risk, that all the areas that have to be taken into consideration, it's a complex link, but it should be almost like Lego, shouldn't it? Whichever brick you use, it should fit nicely somewhere.
Yeah, of course, you cannot change all Lego parts, because especially the handling agents, they are, of course, closely linked to one airline. So there's, of course, a limited option to exchange. Yeah. But you have, as you say, from Europe, you have so many gateways that you can use to reach a certain destination, maybe in the Middle East or in Africa or in Asia. Yeah, so there are multiple options available, even if they might be now a little bit reduced during Corona times, because the capacity is reduced.
Yeah, and service suppliers who want to get noticed and want to give themselves a higher profile, if they align themselves with what Mytigate requires, I mean, they're able to showcase their own capabilities and qualities as well.
Absolutely. I think for the airlines, it's also a nice tool, because they are able to showcase their capabilities directly to the shipper. This is something that normally they don't have so many direct shipper contacts. So here you can really showcase your capabilities. And many airlines, but also handling agents, truck companies, they have done enormous efforts to specialize in pharma. They have obtained certificates, but it's a bit sad if nobody is aware of them, nobody can see them. So I think this is also a great marketing platform to really show what you have done and how good you are as a company.
Yeah, and can I ask you,
if you still have some let's say doubts, it's also a good possibility just to do, let's say, a cross-check and see, okay, hey, where are my weaknesses? And Mytigate is free of charge for supply chain partners. And so you can get this kind of consulting advice for free.
No, that's very good. And can I ask you, has this been extended to first and last milers?
We are discussing actually with wholesalers as well.
Yeah.
But of course, they have slightly different needs, because they are not having so many parties involved, of course, and they use smaller trucks, of course, but for them it's equally interesting.
Yeah, no, I think definitely the way it's going, and also with the options whereby they can go, direct to pharmacies, hospitals, all outlets, and directly to people's homes, So I think,
yes.
Very important. No, that's brilliant. All right, lovely.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, then here basically you have on one slide again all the advantages, especially for airlines and also handling agents. Yeah, you have this direct visibility to shippers. You can market yourself. You can show what all the certificates that you have acquired. You can also share the operational infrastructure. This is, I think, also important then, because sometimes at the infrastructure there are certain things maybe that you cannot change. So at least it should be also in your interest maybe to inform pharma companies about it, so that they know what is going to come and take maybe some preconditions regarding packaging. And also you can, of course, display your service profile, your service portfolio. If you have different products regarding pharma and general cargo, if you have maybe cool or active pharma products, yeah, or passive, this is all possible to demonstrate your capability. Because I think today, of course, often the price is always, let's say, maybe the first decision criteria, and then the product possibilities, the service profile, maybe it might get a little bit neglected. Yeah, I know, for example, some airports, they have acquired also, not now Frankfurt, but others that I have spoken to, they have acquired cool dollies, and they say, well, it's such a shame. I mean, we have now these cool dollies and nobody is using them. And
Yes, exactly.
we don't ask much money for it. Yeah, but maybe they don't know why. I mean, maybe it's that these, let's say, I don't know, 80 euro is still too much, or maybe pharma companies don't know about it. But here you have the possibility really to also demonstrate that you have these different products. Yeah, and normally pharma companies are really also very quality oriented, of course. So that once they know that there is this service available, then they might, of course, also ask for this.
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well, Yvonne, is people overreact, or they react, or they respond, differently to a particular problem, and they've made purchases for things that might not be in demand, or might not be required, or can't be handled as effectively as possible. Because it's one thing to have a cool dolly, but if your front and back end of using that cool dolly aren't controlled properly, it's it almost negates it. But it's still the right thing to do. The more information, the better. And there, where you've got on the quality assurance side, you're talking about there, having anonymous reports as well, just showing the trends and showing the transparency of what's actually happening, which is so important because people can then self-reflect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here there would be really the quality data coming from pharma companies. It would be anonymized, but it would still be possible to face this back into the lanes and to the respective supply chain partners, so that you can really learn. Maybe some partners who have, let's say, a perfect profile, there might be still some problems on this lane. So it's also important for pharma companies to be aware of it. And of course, sometimes it's also interesting for airlines to have an overview about the performance of their handling agents, and maybe have them also from a kind of third-party source.
100%, yeah. And there's so many things. I mean, I'm just thinking ahead now of, the data, the information, and the sort of the upstream pressure neutrality of Mytigate to help everybody is, it's a wonderful platform.
Thank you. That's the purpose of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I've got an idea as well about Mytigate News, so I'll go into that afterwards. But yeah, no, I think it's excellent, Yvonne, and fair play to everybody that's been involved in it. Right, next slide.
Basically, these are the partners that have already created profiles on Mytigate.
Yep, not a bad team, is it?
No, but it of course should be more. I mean, the world is big, and there's so many partners.
Yeah, but not a bad reference point.
So I'm here and ready, and all supply chain partners maybe that are listening to this conference, I would be really happy to welcome them and help them create the profile on Mytigate and display basically their capabilities, their performance, and showcase their capabilities really to the world.
Brilliant, excellent. Right, thanks very much for the presentation. So if you want to take that one off now, and then there's a couple of things that we can just chat about before we close. Now, one of the things that you mentioned in there was about the training side and how important it is now to get people trained, obviously in pharma and then perishable. And when you look at some of the losses or the waste or it just how in those two areas where, to help human beings with care as far as medication is concerned and giving them hope, and also to feed them, where you look at those two areas, there is huge amounts of unnecessary waste and error.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you're doing now, is the right way to go. And if anything, it needs to be pushed and supported by every single representative and regulatory body, to make people start to share the data, because this is an area now where that sharing of data makes so much sense. Now, another question I want to ask you, and I've been speaking to some other panelists as well about this, but airports. Okay. Now, airports have got the opportunity to be a huge influencer on their own ecosystem. So who tenants are, who their partners are, setting codes of conduct, code of practice, maybe even having a performance charter or whatever. I think that's the way that they should be going forward. And they could also then adopt Mytigate as one of their core, corner pieces in the jigsaw of compliance and competence.
Right.
I mean, don't you think airports should take more of a vested interest now moving forward?
Definitely. And I think many airports do this already. I think here in Germany, we have already all the key pharma airports on board. And we are now moving to the next European hubs, like, for example, Brussels or Amsterdam, Luxembourg. I think there is this ecosystem. There are also communities. We have here in Frankfurt the Cargo community, who is also putting forward initiatives. They have worked on a pharma SOP, for example, finalized this in the past years, documenting very clearly all the cutoff times, for example, for pharma. So I think it's a great opportunity if they are. Often it's the airport who takes over this initiative and drives the whole ecosystem, and with a focus on pharma has a great opportunity to improve the performance.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the other thing, obviously, the level of packaging is becoming much more improved. And so, maybe a little bit of a sensitive question, but all of the organizations that have invested so much in assets now with, cool containers and pharmaceutical centers, and it's a lot of money. And now if those opportunities for better packaging and better awareness of lane risk, that might be able to improve the expected outlay, for assets in the future. And that will also differentiate the type of facilities, because at the end of the day, we want it in and out as quick as possible. And if there's second or third line facilities for distribution or last mile or whatever it is, then that would be a different business model.
No, but I think, as you say, I think with the information also that Mytigate can generate on the risk of different lanes, this might also have an impact maybe on the packaging. Maybe if you have, let's say, a well-performing lane and it's already documented with several partners, it's you can maybe think of maybe having less packaging or less expensive packaging. Yes. Maybe shifting from an active cool container to a passive cool container. So I think if you have a better overview on the performance of lanes and risk on a lane, then I think you can take the right packaging decision and save, plastic and costs. Yep.
Which at the end of the day, the word sustainability, whether it's from business sustainability or from the planet, is something that's going to be receiving a much higher profile as we get on as well. So definitely. Well, right, Yvonne, what I've been asking people to do at the end of the various sessions is I give them the opportunity to answer one question. So the question is, what would you like to see happen within the supply chain teamwork and collaboration platform if you had the magic power to say, right, I want to see this happen within the next 9 months? What would that thing be from you? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, of course, that everybody is creating a profile on Mytigate. Yeah, airlines, handling agents, they are all coming, entering the information about their capabilities, their certificates, also seeing where strengths and weaknesses are, where they can still improve, in order to improve the total performance of the entire transport system.
Yeah, no, and why not? And it's a fantastic platform as well. And it's, I mean, you must be over the moon with it, being involved from the theory point of view, and now bringing it to fruition and bringing it out into the real world. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. We have now a company with already 15 employees, and we are moving ahead, and it's it's a lot of fun to really set up something from scratch.
Yeah, no, well done to you. And like I said before, you know, it's so impressive as to what you've done, and wishing you great success. And thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you so much for having me here and having this discussion and the possibility to showcase Mytigate. Thank you so much, Chris.
It's an absolute pleasure, Yvonne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.